Me, getting fat.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1. Hi guys, we're back.
We are indeed.
26. 26.
Did you think we'd ever get there?
I didn't think we'd get to 6, to be honest.
Well, no.
You
but
were
know what I mean?
involved at 6.
We've had such a roller coaster of up and down, things going wrong in general for everyone with COVID and all lot. Between 25 and now, it's just been a difficult moment, hasn't it?
And we've had risks to employment, we've had furlough, we've had all sorts of stuff.
Basically, it's took a lot longer to film this episode than
Actually,
we thought.
To be fair, it hasn't taken that long to actually film. We've had a couple of cancellations with weather, but...
Anyway, so what have we got?
What have we got? Well,
I've got 3 features for you for this episode.
so let's just quickly go through what we've got.
A Toyota Corolla Hybrid.
Indeed, 2021.
2020.
We have a Vauxhall Meriva A.
A what?
Yeah, that's what Vauxhall like to call them.
Make of the years, whatever you will.
Yeah. And
because then at the under end of this spectrum we have an i30N Performance by Hyundai.
By Hyundai. Proper Yorkshire.
Try saying that when you're drunk.
But before we get into the show proper, we do have a bit of an announcement to make. So, because we're all sort of a bit more stressed, things have changed in our personal lives, things like that, we've actually got a 4th person on board to try and help out when not everybody's available. So, welcome to teammate number 4. Come on.
Creeping in quietly.
From this way, sir.
Can't keep being quietly over the gravel.
Hi there.
Let's go over a bit.
He ain't shot.
Yeah. Yeah, how does he know everything? He's got a lot to learn.
Need a mirror.
Alright, yeah.
So, Buddy.
Hi there.
You're not really a stranger to OverDrive, are you?
I'm not, no.
Do you know what?
Do you know when Craig came?
You said that as well, didn't you?
You said the exact same one. I remember it. You're not really a stranger. And I said, no, not really.
Special then.
Yeah.
How many more people who are not strangers to Overline are going to be appearing in shot? Overline. That's a sideline.
That's our own
That's
picture.
actually the washing line edition.
No.
So we look at different
Washing line edition.
How many
Garden makeover.
in the background are then going to pop up saying, oh, well, I was doing it and I was doing that. We're going to have strangers off the street next time.
Yeah. You're next door neighbour.
Yeah, anyway, here he is.
I am here. Yeah.
So you've been doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes, haven't you, so far?
Yeah. Some of our bots of photographs have actually come from Muddy.
Yeah.
I have very good ones too.
Yeah. And got pretty keen eye on that, really, haven't you? So, yeah.
Well, some people think he has two though.
One's a bit lazy.
I had to get that in as soon as he led.
Lead him in, see who'll follow.
I'll just not stare at the camera, no. Yeah, so done a few photography here and there on the side.
And you kind of got a little more involved with the Marcos, as I remember.
Yeah, so quite physical. Trying to put a shell on a kit car, so that was quite interesting.
Not the easiest.
No, not the easiest.
Did you learn anything?
Yeah, don't get a Marcos.
Yeah, don't turn up when building a car.
Yeah. I don't know what to say.
So, are there any other cars, obviously, that you've been involved with behind the scenes with OverDrive that spring to mind that are memorable? Favourites, that kind of thing?
There's the... Can we talk about the most recent performance?
Yeah.
So that was a nice treat.
You've got some nice shots of that.
Got some really good shots. I think it was a good day. to create.
Weather-wise, it were brilliant. So it worked well for the car.
So it's not like it was when we did the TT. I think it was like a blizzard.
Yeah, which was your car.
Yeah,
it was a terrible weather-wise day.
It was cold.
Yeah, cold to say the least.
Brass monkey weather. But anyway, we'll have a bit of a chat at the end of the episode and we'll get on with the episode proper. So, Craig, do you want to lead us in with the first one?
Yes, so the first lovely treat we've got for you you guys is the Toyota Corolla Hybrid. I wasn't there for this one, so fortunately for you, you got the pleasure of these chaps.
Well, me, because I had to edit his bit out because there's too much wind noise.
When I was saying
it wasn't the exhaust.
We're subject to the Yorkshire weather, took its
it did.
Anyway, yes, so on with the Toyota.
Today we're looking at something a little bit different. We're looking at a Toyota Corolla Hybrid. And there's two ways to tell if you're looking at a Toyota Hybrid. The first is the badges that appear pretty much all over the car. The second is a little bit more subtle, and that is the actual badge on the front. But what's so different about a hybrid? Under the bonnet we have what looks like a conventional engine, and to an extent it is. The changes come when you start to look at just how everything is laid out. Where you'd normally expect a gearbox to be, there's something else, and there's a battery in the boot where the spare wheel usually goes. The engine is like any other conventional engine, except it does have a higher thermal efficiency so that it uses less fuel and generates fewer emissions. Where we'd normally expect to see a gearbox, we have the drive unit, which contains the power split device, the power generator, which also acts as a starter motor, and the electric motor itself, which is what actually drives the car. The engine itself isn't actually connected to the wheels. Sat on top of all of this is a box known as the power control unit, and it's actually the brains behind the whole power distribution and charging system. In the boot, where the spare wheel would normally live, in these cars, this is where the battery lives. It has a number of cell packs in there, and each of those cell packs contains a number of batteries that are a little bit bigger than a standard AA battery, and these are what provide all the power to the actual wheels. And when you actually go into the back of the car and look around the edges of the back seats, you'll actually find a little filter area. You're also supplied with a special tool to get these filters out. Every 2 months or so they need to be taken out and cleaned, and this allows airflow into the battery area to keep it cool. This in turn helps to prolong the life of the battery and prevent faults from occurring. So, while it has a conventional engine that burns fuel just like any other car, it does have some advantages. For example, when the car is stationary, no energy is wasted. The engine's shut off until needed for a bit more power, and that means that at that point it's effectively a zero emissions vehicle, meaning it's just as clean here in a built up area as it is out in the country where there's all the trees and fields. So you may wonder, does this make it any different to drive?
If you're used to a standard automatic, then this is no different to drive. It's only when you're used to a manual and you're kind of putting your feet down for the gear change, and if you just happen to be putting your foot on the brake as you've also got the foot on the accelerator, then it does an emergency stop. Which, if you haven't got your seatbelt on, will put you in close contact with the steering wheel rather quickly. All of the respects, it is just the same as basically driving any other automatic car.
On the outside we have the usual alloy wheels, and this is available on pretty much all of the Corolla range. The headlights are incredibly efficient and well designed for things like airflow from the outside of the car, and this carries through to the back of the car. There's little touches as well. Everything about it is about airflow, including the actual design of the door handles themselves, which reduces overall drag with the car.
Yes, the display's got a little bit more information on it, and you've got the info display, which kind of shows you where the power's actually going, whether it's going to the battery, from the battery, and things like that. So you can sort of see here, we've got the engine running, which is shown in red there, sending power to the wheels. We've got power going to the battery. As soon as I take the foot off the accelerator, then the motor changes in this from a motor driving the actual wheels to a power generator. That it uses the motor to actually send power into the battery, reclaiming some of the energy that's being used.
If you don't want to be a regular person and use the accelerator, there is two modes that can actually help you. One of them is the radar assisted cruise mode, which is activated by pressing this button here on the right of the steering wheel. Once you've pressed it, you'll get a message up on the display in front of you saying the mode's been activated. You can then use the plus and the minus buttons to actually then set your speed. The great thing about using this particular mode is that by using the radar sensors on the front of the car, if someone were to suddenly pull in front of you, the car would safely adjust the speed, meaning that you'll always maintain a safe distance from you and them. If you don't want this particular safety feature, you can always use regular cruise control using this button.
The actual controls themselves, perfect. The steering is pretty light. The pickup's pretty good. So this one's the 1.8. There's also a 2 litre, which is a little bit more peppy on the pickup. But even so, this one will push you a little bit. You spotted the reverse parking as well with the camera at the back, which is incredibly clear. Probably one of the better cameras I've seen of late. I think the only thing I would probably criticise, and it's not a major criticism, it's more to do with personal preference, is that last little bit of brake travel, which is very keen compared to the rest of it. So you end up slowing down gradually, and then you just put that little bit of extra pressure on and boom, you stop. Not quite as bad as pushing the brake down at the same time as pushing the accelerator down, which I've done a couple of times thinking it was the clutch. But it's a big wide brake pedal. Oh,
That's alright. 2 feet.
2 feet.
It's 2 feet.
Yeah, I noticed last week. Crazy thing is, you do have that instant torque right at your disposal, thanks to that electric motor, and it is full on. And in what looks to the casual observer as just a regular family hatchback, it's quite unusual. It gives it a bit of a sporty feel. It's not supercar sporty, but yeah, old style Porsche sporty. If you want the acceleration, it's there. If you don't want the acceleration, just drive it as you'd normally drive it.
The actual space in the back is pretty flexible and quite large, to be fair. There are a number of ways it can be configured. Now, when you open the hatch, you'll see the standard look of the boot. You've got the cover at the top, which can be retracted, which will also allow for slightly taller things to be put into the boot. Of course, you can also put the rear seats down, which are also split. So you've got 1/3 and 2/3 for the back. But notice the bar at the top. This also can be removed, and it can be affixed to the top of the seats, which are now flat. The reason for this is so that you can actually put up a net, which is a bit of a safety feature, stopping things from actually going into the driver's area should there be any loose items. But when it comes to the interior, it doesn't stop there. The seats are incredibly comfortable and very adjustable as well, and the whole interior is well laid out. The dash styling might not be to everyone's taste, but it is functional and does have everything laid out properly. The displays are clear, well laid out and well designed. The actual centre console is well thought out, and just ahead of the gear lever you actually notice there's a little toggle switch, and this is for swapping between the different modes and is there so it can't be accidentally tripped. The hill start hold and electronic handbrake are just behind the gear lever, as is a cup holder, which would please Martin. The engine stop-start is just behind the steering wheel, along with the indicator stalks, which are in the normal position. There's controls on the steering wheel, which are well laid out, and the display is actually configurable to an extent. You have your key information about the car, such as the revs, the engine temperature, the fuel level, whether any doors are open. You also have the digital speedometer right at the top, along with the clock and lane departure warning system. If though you wanted a slightly more traditional look to your speedometer rather than a digital display at the top, this can be configured in the settings, which we'll show you now. There's two separate displays. You've got the standard display that it's got here, which gives you a bit more information, but you can also then select between a different type, and that will give you a more traditional style of speedometer that takes up quite a lot of the information display. How you want to set it up is up to you, and of course you can change this at any time you want to. The mirror, central locking controls and window controls are all in the usual place by the door handle, and there's a level of detail here that you don't normally see on cars outside of things like Aston Martin. And as with the front seats, the rear seats are just as well spec'd and pretty comfortable as well, with plenty of headroom and legroom for those taller passengers. Air conditioning, really good. It's keeping the temperature nice and cool in here while we're driving along. It's doing its job perfectly. We've got the big display, as I saw earlier, where we've got the ability to see what the car's doing at that particular moment. And in terms of handling, visibility, things like that, it's great. You've got good visibility out the back, even though the window's quite small by comparison. Wing mirrors are decent size. You've got you've got big windows, so you can actually see everything you need to do when you need to look around, which is pretty important in a car this size, because with it being the estate, it's actually quite large. Yeah, I have to say, this is definitely a surprise. I kind of knew I was going to like it as a hybrid because I like the technology and things like that. I was quite surprised at just how much I like it. And yeah, with a couple of things changing in personal life recently, new job basically, then this is definitely a car I could actually see myself looking at. Don't think Martin will like it though. He's a bit anti-electric. And that was the 2020 Toyota Corolla Hybrid, and it was the estate as well. You know what? I kind of liked it.
So you would.
4 times I drove it. 4 times I actually took it out for various problems, but that's just an excuse.
That's easy for you.
From there we go on to the Vauxhall Meriva, which is the latest addition to the family fleet. And kind of have to wonder how Vauxhall actually now got out of the habit of making cars with seriously bad flaws. Or is this actually pretty good? Let's find out. You may remember we've had a few Vauxhalls on the channel. There was my wife's Zafira, my wife's other Zafira, and my wife's Vauxhall Corsa. Well, the Zafira A, which was diesel, if you remember, that died of dodgy plumbing and a really bad water pump. The Zafira B died of a, as it turns out, crap engine. The Corsa that decided to commit suicide with an incredibly bad MOT. So you'd think Vauxhalls would not be a car to go with next. Well, you'd think so, wouldn't you? Now we have the Meriva. The unusual thing about this is, certainly with certain Vauxhalls, you get the impression it's been put together by somebody who didn't know how to tighten things properly. But this is actually pretty well put together. It's almost as if Vauxhall actually figured out how to build a decent car.
On the inside, for example, inside the ashtray you've got the 12-volt power socket, the standard air conditioning controls, and that stereo. You know the one that appeared everywhere for ages. It was in the Zafira B. It was in the Corsa C and D. It was in the Mark V Astra and probably the Mark IV as well. And here it is again in the Meriva. But that's not all that's been borrowed from the other cars. The standard display for it is there as well. But other than that, the dash is actually quite solid, quite well thought out. And wait a minute, haven't I seen that before somewhere as well? Yes, indeed we have. The dashboard, straight out of the Zafira A, also the Corsa C, which was borrowed from there along with this bit as well that controls the mirrors. So Vauxhall's recycling their parts. The centre console is actually quite good. It's got a couple of cup holders in there and it doesn't actually feel too bad. Everything feels quite solid. And the reverse parking sensor is one of the best I've ever come across. It doesn't panic when you're still 30 feet away from the vehicle behind. It's actually pretty good. There's plenty of room in the back as well as the front without compromising on the actual car or seating areas. And the centre can be brought down to put long items through and have a bit of storage. This, of course, is all good and well. The big question is, what's it like to drive?
Actually not bad. This particular one has a 1.4 litre engine, and while it's basically dragging around a car that's almost twice as heavy as a Vauxhall Corsa, it doesn't do too bad. It does have a little bit of a problem when it comes to hills though, and we do live in a particularly hilly area. And as a result, it does struggle when going up hills. Having said that, if you're aware of this and you can anticipate it, it's not a massive problem. Build-wise, it's actually pretty good. It feels fairly solid, it feels fairly firm. Yes, it does look a little bit like a Vauxhall Corsa that's overeaten and developed extra windows as stretch marks. However, it isn't that bad. It's not a big car, but it's not a small one either. And that does kind of throw you a little bit with the initial handling. So you've got to kind of think a little bit sometimes when you first get into the car. But once you're used to it, it's great. It does everything you need. It's quite comfortable. It's not like we've got cramped conditions anywhere. It's actually pretty good. As you can sort of see, it does struggle up hills. Now, obviously the Vauxhall Corsa would do better. But, like I said, this is twice the size nearly and twice as heavy as the actual Vauxhall Corsa. You've got all the additional metalwork of the car. And then on top of that as well, you've also got things like the additional size of the dashboard. It all adds weight. And that's pretty much where the problems are. In terms of handling and stuff like that, it does wallow a little bit. and to try and get the feel right, the suspension's slightly stiffer than the standard Corsa, which means you do feel the bumps a little bit more. If I were to say, would I recommend it? Yes, but there is a huge caveat. This thing has electric power steering, which was brought in with the Corsa C, and it doesn't do a very good job of it. Basically, this car in America was recalled because the electric power steering kept failing. So there's a massive recall. The same problem occurs here. However, there has been no recall. The cure? A brand new steering column. And this isn't exactly something that might not happen. Eventually, it will happen. With driving this one round today, it's happened twice. Both times it's happened, it's been in stationary traffic, waiting for traffic lights to change. And the EPS light comes on, and that's it. You've got no power steering at all. And it's not exactly easy to steer without it. Add to that the fact that you're struggling up hills, it could be a far better car. If you're after this sort of car, the one thing I would say is get it from a dealer, from a reputable garage, get a warranty with it, just in case that power steering decides it's going to start failing. Because it's not a case, it's not a case of if it will fail, it's a case of when it will fail. It is a flaw in this thing that really means that I cannot wholeheartedly turn around and say, yes, I recommend one of these. I cannot wholeheartedly say it's a really good vehicle. It could be, it has the potential to be. It just isn't, for those simple little things that should have been sorted out.
There aren't any of the problems that you sometimes get with SUVs of the same size, such as a small boot or anything like that. And the non-turbo engine does actually mean it can be quite economical, especially in hilly areas like we have around where I live. It's not like the Meriva's a bad vehicle.
Yeah, go get one. They're good enough. They're pretty good. But make sure you've got a warranty.
So as you found out from there, I'd make your mind up about that Meriva, but so I'm not saying that. I can't comment on that after the one that's coming up next, which is my Hyundai i30N.
It's good for you.
Performance. Bit of a mouthful of a title there, but bit of a car as well. Let's take a look. Just a bit. Just a bit, yeah. Well, you take a look and see. More than a bit. Well, hello everybody, and you join me in my new car. Yes, not brand new. I have gone down the used car road again. Welcome to the Hyundai i30N Performance. With this car, Hyundai made two versions of this. They made the i30N, which has a 250 brake horsepower, but then they also made this version, which is the i30N Performance, which has a 275 brake horsepower. A little bit more, but you get a lot more things. With the Performance you get a limited slip diff, you get an active variable exhaust which sounds the dogs. You've got tons of settings to play with, suspension, steering, the diff, everything. You've got so many things to do with it. In fact, there's over 1,994 combinations and I'm not going to try them all. This car went from concept to production in 30 months.
That's very short space.
To put straight in line with the likes of the GTI and things like that. And it trances the Golf GTI. Instantly blows it away.
Definitely, yeah.
And it's like what I've said before, badge snobbery. People will overlook this and think, no, I want a performance hatch, but no, I don't want this. All because of the badge. And what a shame.
Do you know what though? Let them overlook it.
Yeah.
Because this is a rare car, and it's got all your creature comforts for your day-to-day driving, but when you want to push on,
Yeah, I mean the beauty of it, at the end of the day, you've got to be able to have fun in it, but it's also got to be practical and use it.
Yeah.
And there's not many cars which has a piece of scaffolding in the boot. Oddly enough, in this car you have an eco mode, which why on earth a car like this needs it, I don't know, but it's there. Also, and the ones that I like, you've got your normal mode for your normal day driving, and then you've got N mode, maximum attack with N mode. You press that on with the toggle switch and you've got everything there, diff, suspension, steering, handling, all the lot, the active exhaust, everything you have got full on. Now, what you've also got is another mode, and that's called N Custom. That's the bit where you can play about with everything, and there's no restrictions, and I mean everything. Hyundai haven't said if you press this button it goes to our settings and that's it. No, you're allowed to do what you want with it. Interior. I didn't sort of touch on it at first because a lot say, yeah, it's kind of bland, and I'll be the first to admit, I'll just knock that so I can have it out of gear. I'll be the first to admit it is slightly bland. Not knocked together as you'd expect with like a Golf or something like that. We're not to them standards. We do have on the door cards, it is a soft sort of imitation leather stuff, and right down halfway along, you know, of the door we do get some harsh plastics at the bottom, and obviously some on the dash. All the top is nice and soft and plush. The seats on this model are a half leather and like a sort of suede Alcantara, and it is a nice cabin to be in, there is no denying. Seats are logoed, but just like a stencil sort, they're not coloured. Got an armrest, plenty cup holders. But moving on to, let's say, the display. At the moment I've got it on the sat nav. You can obviously go to the home screen and things like that. When I mentioned about the N mode, which you can toggle through with your little like flappy paddle buttons, when you put it into maximum N mode you can go onto the screen where you look at the N mode and you can do your custom and everything like that. You can even do a lap time, all sorts of things like that. All lovely and crisp. You've got your rev matching button when you've got it in your custom N mode, which blips the throttle from down changes, and you get a lovely noise, and it helps you. So for heel and towing, it can do it better than most people can heel and tow. Some people will say it can't, but believe me, it can. All your controls on the steering wheel, like to answer your phone, menus, volume up and down, all your usual stuff. Cruise control, which also when you have it in launch control, you can use your cruise control to set it up and down a little bit as you want. All your vent systems well laid out. You've got dual like climate control. All the buttons are so easy to read. I found a worrying one that says sync. We're not going to go into that, so I don't want to dare press it. But you've got aircon. You can circulate it all around. You've got your front and heated, well, you've got your rear one and you've got a front like maximum blower. You haven't got heated windscreen because that's a Ford thing, as we know. Lower down, you've actually 2-volt power units, USB and an auxiliary. Nice mechanical gear change on the gear stick. Nice and precise and really mechanical, but really good. And you've got your buttons just by your gear stick for your active light, city stop, auto off. You can knock your parking sensors off if you want to really judge it yourself. Better idea, so it's not screaming at you. And you can knock your stability control off and things like that. It is a nice cabin to be in. Like I said, display beautifully crisp and clean. Nice little bleeps to it. All the menus are quite easy to read and scroll through. Setting my phone up was an absolute doddle. It took seconds. Now then, Hyundai themselves didn't just make this car. No way. They poached a one Albert Biermann. Now any of you guys out there thinking, heard that name before, you'd be right. If you don't know, if you remember a lot of the older, up to nearly present BMW's M cars, the man behind all them was no other than Albert Biermann. Now he has had a massive hand in this. This is his brainchild, and it had to work for Hyundai. Because let's not forget, the hot hatch market was already flooded. It was a big party, and Hyundai have been sat waiting and watching. It's up there in its looks, it's up there in everything. Some might say it looks a bit subtle. Yeah, it slips under the radar as a performance car. But, here's the but. When you put your foot down, you can know about it in this. 2 litre turbocharged engine, like I said, it's 275 brake in this. They say they've limited it to 155, and it's all you'll ever need is 155 in a car like this. It really is. You don't need no more. It is just a nice balance. Front wheel drive, of course, but a nice limited slip diff. It really hugs the road, does this thing. It is sat, this model, on 19-inch alloy wheels. You get that as standard with the performance. If you get the regular i30N, you only get 18-inch. Not a massive deal breaker, you might think, but these 19 inches that this is sat on are lovely. Hyundai haven't gone for Flash, Brembo or any other make of brakes. They've gone for in-house brakes. They've done it all themselves. And also with that, when the seats that you're sat in, not Recaro's, no. They've kept it simple. They've kept the cost down, and they've done their own. This in-house theme spreads right through the car. And on roads like this, it really clings. It is a superb drive. Now, cost. These new, the N Performance one, let's start with that, the big boy. The N Performance one is just under 30 grand when they were new. If you can't afford that money but you still want these sort of thrills, but not the sort of power on that, and you won't get the active exhaust, you got to go for the normal i30N, which is about 3 grand less. If you get one used like I've got with this, haggle, you get a good car. I was very lucky to find this car already as a performance one and all lot, and yeah, and it just ticked all my boxes. Who could refuse a car like this? You hear that? On the downshifts, lovely. It burbles nicely in normal, it grunts in the N mode, and it's the changes when you change down, it gives a nice noise and all the lot, and the cracks and bangs when you really rev it, they are sublime, absolutely sublime. So, what do you think of it, Craig? What do you think of my new motor?
You know, I'm quite taken by the subtlety of it, really. I think probably out by the colour. But it's one of them cars that just, like you say, just slips completely under the radar.
I think it does, especially in this colour.
People don't, when they think of a performance car, they don't think of a Hyundai, do
they? Don't. This is their first credible one into the market, this hatch, really.
I love the stance of it. I think suspension, how it's set, it's just absolutely right. And obviously it's all stock, in it. It's all.
This is all standard.
Yeah.
It's had no tweaks onto it or anything like that. But I mean, even coming round, you've got your side skirt, but they've embossed it again with the N logo.
But subtly without the colour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Though some people will get aftermarket stuff to cover them. I know they will. Me included. They've really thought about it. I mean, the only thing that might be a bit fake is that shape there. There's no air can pass through there. It's sealed in round there. But you've got your nice tailpipes. You've got a kind of rear diffuser, but I don't know what diffusing this will do because it is actually sealed in. It's more for a look, is that?
More for show, yeah.
But yeah, and one cool feature I like, I haven't seen all cars with this, a triangular high level brake line. Yeah. That's the Hyundai i30N Performance. What a mouthful, but what a car.
So that was the i30N Performance. What a car!
Yeah,
good choice, Martin.
Thank you.
I have to hand it to you there, pal. That was,
well,
didn't see that one coming.
I can hear the people now saying, but he's always said on nearly 99.9% of videos, I'm a Ford man, cut me in half, you'll see Ford written right through. Well,
not anymore.
Certain developments change that.
Which you will see coming up.
Yeah. Certain things happen. There's a lot of people that do follow us and watch a lot of his videos will know what I'm aiming at here, but
I think with that, the whole experience was just bad, wasn't it?
yes, I sort of voted with my feet and thought, do you know what, there's different car companies out there, and I found the car that I think I've always been looking for.
Well, there you go, and I say, like I say, I can't fault it there at all. Something a bit different.
Yeah.
So, hope you enjoyed all the features that we've done. Please let us know in the comments, and as you're pretty good at doing all that kind of stuff. Let us know what you think.
But before we actually
We're not quite finished.
go, not trying to do a Wham reference there or anything.
No.
Muddy, welcome to the
Welcome.
team. So, how have you found it?
I was just going to say, what do you think of this up?
Well, it's alright. It's, you know,
Chaotic.
it's a bit of...
Never goes straight forward.
No.
I think that's when it works best though, because when you start thinking about it too much.
Yeah.
You're right there.
It's got to be natural.
Yeah. But yeah, I've enjoyed myself very much. You know.
Good.
Any memorable cars from your time on OverDrive so far?
Um,
I know this is the first time in front of the camera, but you've...
yeah.
Well, actually, technically it's the second because it's the Marcos episode
Well.
8.
Alright.
But he's seen lots of stuff as well.
Yeah.
Phil, so
Yeah.
I mean,
Put him on the spot.
might change a little bit here, but the Marcus was pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing, it's a very unusual car.
Yeah.
So, had like a really 70s kind of,
If you look at
Style to
the
it.
Marcos GT,
yeah.
the V6 one, the styling's very similar. There's a few
Yeah.
subtle changes. The look's very similar.
Yeah.
So you get an idea on what it's going to look like, but in red.
Right. Probably more the aspect of it, just seeing it apart is quite an engineering feat in itself.
Yeah.
But he's got all the right tools,
Yeah.
and he knows what he's doing, so
Well, we were all there for starters.
He had extra tools.
Yeah.
I think we're so
You
used.
missed that one. I bet you're glad now.
I think you mentioned before as well that off camera that the TT was quite a nice car to drive as
Yeah,
well, wasn't it? That
the
was-
TT was a nice car to drive. I do miss it, but I think that might be my next car coming up again.
For getting another TT
Possibly. Yeah.
or putting the old one back on the road. Or is that
Well,
gone now?
could do, but it probably won't go anywhere.
I think the only thing really to do then is say ta-ra for this episode. One thing to notice, or one thing to note before we do actually go, all the full reviews are actually on Patreon now. They will be released over the next couple of weeks. If you wanted to support us from anything from 80p or $1 a month, then you can get early access to the full reviews of those videos, which include a hell of a lot more information. And some of them are twice as long as the ones here.
For less than a cuppa. Wherever you live, it's for less than
I
a
will
cuppa.
mention briefly, we do have a couple of things in the pipeline coming up, including another change to the OverDrive fleet, which Eagle Eye viewers may have realised if Malcolm's teasing didn't go unnoticed. We do have a change on that side of things as well, but that'll be coming up in the next episode.
So, until then,
Bye for now.